Hello again. Welcome back to Love is Not Blind, Part 2. Now, just a quick recap. The last discussion was around the Love is Not Blind dating app, which is more than a dating app, it's also a business app and a social friendship app. The three options, the three modes that I highlighted, if you remember. Agape being the most effective, the most important, the most valuable love that is out there, which is said to be that of a mother or a father, a parent's love, a parental love towards their child, towards their son or daughter. The sacrificial love, the love that a friend is willing to lay down their lives, lay down their time, even lay down their plans, their ambitions for someone other than themselves. The other love that we talked about was eros, the emotional, erotic kind of love, the sensual, some would call it even lustful kind of love. The love that is more based on emotions, the irrational love, the agitated love, the triggered love, the love that is more sensitive love. Yeah. And last but not least is logos, which is the business, the partnership, the logical love, the love that means business. Okay, business before pleasure, some might say. Now, I wanted to talk today about how do you identify someone who is wifey material? How do you identify someone who is wifey material? Someone who is actually worth marrying. Now, if you go on dating apps, they are filled with multiple profiles of women, imposters, AI bots, all saying the same thing, all saying that they are available, single, and ready to mingle, seeking love, seeking relationship, seeking a serious relationship. But yet at the same time, you can't actually necessarily distinguish the wifey from the non-wifey, or should I say, the wife material that you actually like or would want. Because there are girls that are wife material, perhaps, that you would not want as a man, and vice versa. How do women, how do women decipher whether a man is actually a hubby material? Some of these things are decisive on what it is that you want and how you see things. You know, some women, for example, may only consider a man who earns six figures or makes six figures as hubby material, and they may be less focused on the looks, but more focused on the income, the status. And obviously, some men may not be willing to entertain a girl that they're not attracted to, or who they don't see as at least a 7 out of 10, let's say, and maybe care less for their status, for their income, but they may be more focused on their body count. And how would you even know? How would you even know? Because even if you do ask them and they do respond to you, it doesn't mean that they are telling the truth. So how do you decipher? How do you know, guys? How do you know? How do you know, girls, whether someone is hubby or wife material? Now, one way, one way to know is to actually have a checkpoint. So there is the surface level checkpoint, which is the exterior. So where you look at someone and you check them out head to toe, you don't know them, you check out their profile and you think, wow, I'm attracted to this person. Tick. 7 out of 10. Tick. Now that's very surface level. Okay. Now there is an app that I remember hearing about actually. Um, that was, what was it called? I think it was called something like, what was it called? What was it called? It'll come back to me. But basically, it was an app where the men are expected to declare their financial status, so women can actually select based on that as well on their profiles. And I actually think it's an effective way to, if one is being honest, to actually, you know, filter, quickly filter through, you know, that which you don't want, because obviously a lot of women, you know, do have, you know, those wifey qualities, which we can get into at a later stage, but they don't want to have to work, for instance, knowing that they are wanting to be a mum. And that makes sense, actually. That makes sense, you know. um, but yeah, so there's the surface level checklist, which is obviously based on what you see on the profile. Obviously, the thing is, what one is needs to be mindful of is just be mindful and do note that that may not be them. Okay, that may be an imposter, that might be an AI bot, that might even be a dude pretending to be a woman. And this is where it comes back to, even just the get-go, the foundations is, how easily accessible is it for people, for imposters to get on to these dating apps? And this is another reason why I'm promoting the Love Is Not Blind dating app, which is more than a dating app. But you must be verified. You must be verified before you can even browse and get a taster on the app. And there is a team, there is an AI team, but there is a human team behind the scenes who do the verification. And I've actually even set it up that you have to use Stripe, for instance. The team of Stripe, which is obviously a renowned, um, more than a financial organization or company, but it's also for health and safety, for making sure that finances and businesses are protected and individual parties are protected. So they verify members on behalf of the Love Is Not Blind app. Hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, cut it short. Surface level stuff. Know that you may be seeing something that is not actually accurate, but at least it's one way to do the checklist. Now, the next stage, assuming the checklist has gone well, have a video call, have a live video call, and also Join the live video call, ask the questions, ask the necessary questions, find out about the location. You could be talking to someone who's overseas, and are you willing to, even though you may have the funds, is it worth traveling to meet someone, a stranger whom you do not know will even show up? Okay, so location is to be considered. Backups, have backup plans. So if you're going to go overseas, maybe hit two birds, three birds, one stone. Maybe you want to set up that you meet other people as well for business, for network, social. You may want to go on holiday as well, knowing that the person or people that you're planning to meet may not show up. Protect yourself. Maybe consider going out there with other friends. Okay, do what is necessary. Do your due diligence. Even research them. Look them up. There are memes. There are people. I know people who work in insurance. I had a guy who worked in insurance, and I asked him to check over someone who actually hit my vehicle, my motorbike, one time, and he got up the whole data shebang, everything, the name, where he lives, how many, children he has, everything, because of his access due to his profession. And it was the easiest, quickest insurance job ever that I've heard of, and I experienced it, and I was well rewarded, um, and justice prevailed because of the connection. And that, again, that links to the app. You need to have connections, human connections, trusted connections that can get the job done, that can actually verify in a moment whether someone is legit, or an A-bot, or an AI, or a dude, okay, in a costume. Anyway, okay, now let's go to the deeper checklists. The deeper checklists are actually carried out in person, but they're not as you may think them to be. Okay, some people may say, why don't you deliberately turn up late, see how they respond? Are they angry? That's one way to test whether they've got a temper or not. It's something you could do. Something maybe not worth doing, because depending on how late you want to be, they may just leave, and you actually miss out on someone who's genuine, because you're actually playing pranks and trying to test them. The deeper checklist, guys, okay, which is one of the most effective methods, is the unexpected advancements. Now, for a woman, in general, being not as physically strong, they 100%, and obviously men as well, but they 100% need to protect themselves where possible with the environments that they plan to meet a stranger in. Now, let's go to the deeper checklist, which is also linked to the finances, the deeper pockets. A man paying for your meal on a first date is not overly special. Now, in my opinion, it's not a difficult thing to do. It's not a difficult thing to do. There was a test that was once carried out, actually, that some of you may be familiar with. And I'll share with you, because these are some of the deeper checklists that I'm going to go into now. And they are the ones that happen when people are not expectant or not knowing that they are being tested. If you're on your first date, it's like being on an interview. You're on your best behavior. That means nothing almost. Like, if you want to test someone's character, To test and ask someone questions in an interview or on a date, and they're literally dressed to their sharpest. They've made the efforts, got their hair done. That's not them. In many cases, that's not the real them. The amount of girls over the years that I've seen without makeup, unexpectedly, and seeing how different some of them look, it's actually quite frightening at times, to be honest. You need to be able to assess them when they do not know that they are being assessed. Now, going back to the story I was going to say, there was a story where a guy wanted, which is understandable, he wanted to actually hook up someone he knew with a potential spouse, a potential wife. He was not looking for a girlfriend, he was looking for a wife. And he thought to himself, if I want to get a wife for my acquaintance or friend, I need to get someone who is willing to go above and beyond, actually. But someone who's willing to go above and beyond based on their character. I need to be able to assess their character. Now, some of you will know that consistency is linked to character, because how you behave one day in one environment around certain people is how you should behave in another environment around different people. So in other words, if you're kind in a bar, in a restaurant, you should also be kind when you're in your car driving, when you're playing sports, you know. Now, what this guy did is it's the equivalence of asking a woman to pay for your meal. Can you imagine? Now, some of you will be like, what? No way, Jose. But this is what this guy did. He basically asked an absolute stranger to buy his petrol. And he was not looking for himself. In fact, he was not even a desirable looking guy, arguably. Remember, he was the wingman. He was the man assessing behind the scenes. He's almost like the undercover boss or the undercover millionaire boss who goes to one of these franchises, one of these branches to see what is actually happening behind the scenes. And that is a beautiful way. That is the way to assess someone, is to show up behind the scenes before the real scenario, before the match actually begins. Does that make sense? Now, this woman, she agreed. She agreed to buy him petrol. He was so amazed by that kindness, by that act. And not only did she offer to buy him petrol, but she was even agreed to buy the person he was with petrol. She wasn't looking at them thinking, I want to lie down with them. Because like I said, they didn't come looking desirable. The undercover boss doesn't come looking as a so-called millionaire. He doesn't show up in his Bentley. He doesn't show up in his polished shoes. He shows up in so many cases as someone who looks like less than average, someone who's maybe struggling financially. Now, anyway, she did not think she was being tested. There were no hidden cameras. Anyway, but she offered to pay for his petrol and his friend's petrol. He was so taken back. And not only that, she had beauty, but because he also, funny enough, knew of her family, he done his research, he done his homework. He had watched her for a period. So these are the checks that I'm talking to you guys about. You actually want to, if you can, even in this digital world, you want to assess someone that you can track prior. Someone you can track not only themselves but also their family. Not that the family matters too much, but you do need to be mindful that if you're trying to marry someone, marry a girl, one should expect that she's going to have family or friends that are close to her. And it's worth knowing some of these things beforehand, whether or not you want to be involved with them. Because in some cases, certain families actually might be a put off, especially if you're someone who's got options. Anyway, he was familiar with the girl's family, and knowing that she was kind, knowing a little bit about the family, and that they were actually established, and some of the other information that he knew about, their lifestyle, their habits, their social network. Not that these are be all and end all, but these are things that he was aware of. He figured that she was qualified based on that. He didn't know about her sexual partners at this stage, but he knew that she lived at home. He knew that she was a home girl, a homebody, because he'd been watching her. He'd been watching her for some time beforehand. And these things were important. These things matter. There are some people you do not know where they are outside of their 9 to 5 or outside of their school or education, university or part-time job. But some people based on consistency where they're going to be. And if they are at home with the family, it's quite likely that they don't have many sexual partners. Because a lot of guys, this is very important in their minds when it comes to meeting someone who they would consider to wifey up. The amount of sexual partners can be a massive hindrance. For girls as well. For girls as well. And like I said, it's one thing asking these questions, but it's another thing knowing or thinking that you know whether or not what you've heard is accurate. But at least it helps. It helps to have done the assessment prior and to be able to gauge roughly whether or not they are suitable, at least in other areas as well. It's similar to any other field as well, actually. When scouts are wanting to recruit, I used to be a football coach for Arsenal, and we would go into schools and run tournaments, run football matches. And it was so easy from year 7 to years 11. It was so easy to decipher and filter players that you think are, let's say, potential, just based on a few football matches, based on their performances in their position. You see, we're assessing them when they don't even know. And sometimes they know they're being assessed, and so what? You better show up. You better perform. How do you perform under pressure? And I won't go into the different tests, assessments at the moment. I've shown you one. One was about, asking for petrol money. It's not common for a girl to be willing to put up. But yeah, when you want to test, when you want to recruit, when a scout wants to recruit for a player, they're going to schools. We used to go into schools. Imagine, as an Arsenal coach, we'd go into schools and run sessions, run matches, run tournaments, and then we would select not just the top players, but would give a lot of players the opportunity based on their attitude, you know, their behaviour, their consistency over a period of time. Would give them the opportunity to come over to the Arsenal stadium, which was Highbury and Islington at the time, to compete in tournaments against other schools, other professionals, young professionals, and we would be able to see whether or not they've got what it actually takes to some degree, because these are ongoing assessments. You don't just get an 11-year-old and think, oh, they're ready to become pro, because they're not. But at least if they've got the foundations, you can assess their speed, you can assess their reaction time, their skill, and you can think, okay, we can give them an opportunity at the Arsenal Academy or another team, or they can keep coming back. And after a period of time, we can assess them and evaluate them, and then they might get that contract, even as young as 12, 13. Anyway, hopefully that is helpful, guys. The financial test is a massive one, especially for girls. Girls can obviously test the men, but like I said, paying for a meal is not really that special. That's almost expected, especially in certain cultures. But for a girl to buy you and your friends petrol, a full tank, that is not common. She is rare. She is rare. If she's got the looks as well that you desire, 100% snap her up if you can. Now, let me just finish by saying what happened next. When this girl was willing to do what she did, and she did it. She actually did it. She actually delivered. The guy made her a proposal. He gave her a offer that she was not willing to turn down. And that can be shared on the next episode. I hope you like listening to me, and please do check out the app, the Love Is Not Blind app, and feel free to DM me if you've got any further questions or queries.